start counting the day of votes, which are going to be strongly Republican, and Trump will take the lead in all of these. Let me give you some examples of this. So let's do North Carolina. So at one point in the last few weeks of early voting, Democrats had a 32-point advantage to ballots. Now, we couldn't tell who people voted for, but they could say, oh, we got a Democrat ballot and we got a Republican ballot. So we just got to assume that they voted for the Republican or the Democrats, right? So at one point in North Carolina, the Democrats had a 32-point advantage. But as we got closer to Election Day, Democrats only had a 5.8% advantage. Now you look at that, you're like, well, hold on. Democrats were up by 5.8%? That's a lot. How's Trump going to overcome that? Well, I'll tell you this, back in 2016, Democrats did not have a 5.8 early vote advantage. They had a 9.7 early vote advantage. They had a twice as big advantage. And still, Trump won by 4 points. So if 4 years ago, the Democrats had a 10-point advantage and Trump won by 4, today, Biden has a 6-point advantage, right? You with me? But when you get North Carolina results in 45 minutes, Biden's going to be in the lead. But that's just the early votes. Wait till the Republican votes, day of votes are counted. Let me give you one more here, and then we can go to our next guest. Let's do Arizona's a big one. So Arizona, at one point, now let's do Florida. Let me do Florida. Democrats at one point had an 18.8% vote advantage. Like, holy cow, like 2 weeks ago, Democrats were up 18.8%. On Monday, that was 1%. Democrats had a 1% advantage. And that's pretty much what you're seeing right now in these polls. On Election Day in 2016, Democrats had a 1.4% advantage. So an even bigger advantage. And Trump won by 1 percentage point. Right? So that's a little closer. But still, Biden is doing worse. Here's the bottom line. Biden is doing worse in early voting than Hillary did in 2016 in the states that Trump ultimately won. So the question is, did more Republicans show up for this election, or did fewer compared to 2016? I believe the answer will be more, and that's why I think Trump is going to win. I want to go to Madison Jasiato, who's here, one of our wonderful contributors here at the first Jasiato. Sorry, Madison. Madison. How are you, Madison?
Doing well. How are you?
Sorry, I'm frantic and excited, Madison. I apologize. Are you as encouraged as I am at the moment?
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that I'm looking at, we see these early results coming in, is that early voting number. And for two reasons. The first reason being that if I were the Biden campaign, I'd be concerned because I would be expecting a bigger difference in some of these numbers in these states in the early voting than what we're starting to see. So it'll be an interesting thing to keep tabs on. One of the other interesting points here, you talk about people who are Democrats requesting those ballots. And that's really all we have to go off of, coming into today. But when you look at a lot of the rallies and you look at who were ultimately the participants in these rallies for President Trump, 10 to 25% of them were actually either registered Democrats or people who didn't vote in 2016. So I think this could be one of the most unexpected, interesting elections. And of course, coronavirus throwing a whole, another difference in this compared to any other election. So some people who may not have voted early traditionally may have voted early this time, or some people may even be, more fired up to want to make sure they get to the polls on Election Day. So it's going to be an interesting night. But I do feel very confident that we will see a win for President Trump because there's really no comparison between these two candidates.
No, I loved watching a couple clips on MSNBC. They'd have a reporter go to some polling station in North Carolina, whatever, talk to some person, and they're like, oh, yeah, I voted for Trump because of these reasons, whatever. And then they'd find out that that person was a Democrat. And the interviewer was like, oh, wait, I think you're going to see a lot of that, as you just said. You're in Ohio, right? Is that your main focus this last election?
I am in Ohio. I was focused all across the country, but the state of Ohio, I think, will win even bigger for President Trump and go farther to the right than they did in 2016, because I talked a lot about the hesitant voters in 2016. Many Ohioans who are conservative didn't think the president was going to keep the promises he made on the campaign trail. He ultimately did that. He over-delivered on many, whether it's the Supreme Court, the judicial nominees, tax cuts, criminal justice reform. There's so many things that led him to actually do them, and he did. And so I think he won a lot of voters that he didn't necessarily get in 2016. Some of them either didn't vote or maybe they voted third party, not necessarily Hillary voters. but people who I think came over and probably voted for him today. So when I'm talking to people all across the state, I think we may win by more than those 8 points for the president that we won in 2016. I think we have a strong showing in many other states as well. There are quite a few paths to victory, of course. Pennsylvania is going to be critically important tonight, but when you look at what the Biden-Harris campaign has gone back and forth on when it comes to fracking and when it comes to their lack of support for the American worker, I think that's going to kill them in Pennsylvania, a state that they maybe could have won otherwise.
Yeah, wow. In Ohio, it used to be a swing state, and now it seems solidly red. The people aren't even really talking about it that much, which is great news. And I think maybe that'll be the case, hopefully, with some of these other Midwestern states moving forward. Speak for another second here about the shy Trump voter, because that's going to be the big thing talked about afterwards. Who is this shy Trump voter? Why are they shy? And why do you think they're voting for Trump?
Well, I think there's actually many people that fall into the category of the shy Trump voter or the silent majority, as we like to call them. Some of these being women, some of these being minorities, Hispanic Americans, Black Americans, people who, don't feel respected by their peers, people at work, people in their church, friends, family members, etc. And so a lot of times they will go to the polls and they'll vote for President Trump, but, they'll maybe whisper it to someone like me or someone like you and not really want to say it too loud for fear of their job, for fear of retaliation in their communities. And I think, following this election, a lot of the mainstream media and the Democrats would be shocked to see the results coming out of the Black community, coming out of women, because they continue to push that narrative that women and Black Americans and Hispanic Americans hate the president. But the reality is many Americans, most Americans vote on policy. They vote on their pocketbooks. And so they're looking at, what is this candidate going to do for me versus what is the other candidate going to do for me? And when you have a Democratic Party and a Democratic candidate that have gone so far left that they're unrecognizable to Democrats even 10 years ago, you have a major problem. And I think the party has abandoned the Democratic worker and the typical Democratic voter. They feel disenfranchised, and that's why President Trump's message was so strong in 2016 and remains strong today.
Hey guys, Buck Sexton here. If you love watching my show on the First TV, then make sure you stay connected with us on social media. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Parler. You can even watch us on YouTube. Stay connected and stay informed with First TV anywhere and everywhere. We'll see you there.
Looking for an email you actually want to read? We've got you covered. Sign up for the Up First newsletter only from The First. Every morning we deliver the day's essential headlines and prepare you for what everyone will be talking about. Plus, you'll also get instant analysis and real facts, helping you cut through the wait. Sign up for the Up First newsletter right now at thefirsttv.com.
A wise man once said you should do something great every single day before you go to sleep at night, and I have great news for you. Now you can. What can you do? Well, you can watch me. Every single night, 9 p.m. Eastern, right here on The First. My show, I'm Right, blows you away with incredible wisdom, hilarity, and of course, stunning good looks. You can catch my show, I'm Right, every single night. 9 p.m. Eastern. I'll see you.
Bill O'Reilly is back on TV and only on the First. Watch Bill O'Reilly's No Spin News every weeknight at 8 p.m. Eastern. Now more than ever, you need real facts without the spin. Tune out the 24-hour news cycle and watch Bill O'Reilly on the First TV. It's a new kind of network with fresh ideas and bold opinions. Start watching the No Spin News and so much more at thefirsttv.com. No cost, no spin, no agenda. Don't miss Bill O'Reilly's No Spin News. Visit thefirsttv.com right now. Don't have the First TV app yet? What are you waiting for? Download it and get instant access to Bill O'Reilly, Dana Lash, Jesse Kelly, Buck Sexton, and Mike Slater on your phone, tablet, or smart TV. The best part, it's absolutely free. Watch your favorite programs live or on demand, anywhere, anytime. Don't wait. Download the First TV app right now on Roku, Amazon Fire, Android, iOS, and Apple TV. Just search the First TV in your favorite app store and start watching today. Stay informed. Download the First TV app right now. It's free. Hold the Line with Buck Sexton premieres tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern right here on the First.
You name it, anything with a number in it, I'm gonna geek out on it.
Well, you're the man tonight. I'm glad you're here. Give us the latest with Florida. Can we start there? Is that okay? What are you seeing?
Yeah, Florida's interesting. Right now, the New York Times has a 94% chance that Trump wins it as of the moment that I came on your show. It may have ticked a little bit left or right since then. But I really think that the story here, Mike, is told by the Democrats' decline with Latinos now in movement against Joe Biden. And I think it's because it's not just Biden, though. Looking at it in congressional races, there's a lot of Democrats who are in tighter races than they should be. And I think that comes from the embracing of the Democratic Party of a socialist agenda that many Latinos have had to live through in Latin America. And they're like, you know what? That's not why we came to America. We're going to vote against them. And it's really a very large puzzle in terms of the movement of suburban whites and Latinos in Florida. They're kind of crossing over each other. That could be a complete realignment of the party that has the potential to begin there and spread to Latinos in other places like Texas and Arizona. It's going to be really see what happens in those states.
Chris, that is such a huge potential shift. And we'll see if maybe Florida Hispanics are an outlier with that. But that could very well be the case in Florida. That is interesting. Wow. Okay. I saw here you retweeted that Trump in Miami-Dade absentee early vote got more votes than he got in all of 2016 by 120,000 votes. What? So tell me about Miami-Dade and what does that sentence even mean, what I just read?
What it means is that's an area that Republicans have not been competitive for a long time. In fact, Ileana Ros-Lehtinen had that seat in that area for a while, and she was able to dominate it because of her ability to work the area. But she left, and we lost that seat immediately. And what this says to me is you see, again, what I just referenced is sort of a shifting of the dynamic with Latino voters down there. And the fact that Trump was able to exceed that overall is remarkable, particularly when you consider, now the exit polling I'm looking at is nationally. It's not specific to Florida. But when you look at it, based on the early vote and the absentee ballot vote, it breaks down nationally to about 50% Democrat, 21% Independent, 25% Republican. So that's kind of what we've known, Mike. I mean, there's no shock in that. Republicans have, in fact, I've talked to campaigns that were phone banking today, and a Republican voter would rather stay in line for 6 hours than mail an absentee ballot in and potentially have it rejected. I mean, they were just convinced that they were going to be rejected. I think the president kind of encouraged that to a certain extent. So what happens if you look at it, and Florida's got a great election system, you could sign on almost like an hour-by-hour basis and see Republicans turn out and voting. And what you saw was that Republicans were exceeding their early vote margins in most counties. But in Miami-Dade, they exceeded their early vote margins from 2016, and they exceeded their entire vote margins in terms of what they were able to turn out in the initial vote total. So it's really, like I say, I hate to be repetitive, but it is a remarkable realignment of the voting structure that has dominated Florida really for about the last 2 decades.
Okay, so you're not worried about Florida at this moment going Republican?
No, it's, again, I'll quote the New York Times numbers. At the moment that I said that I signed on with you, it had 94% chance likelihood of President Trump in Florida.
Okay. I want to move forward a little bit more. Let's just stay in Georgia for a quick second, right? Because I imagine if Florida is going to be so red, as we're seeing, that got to be true in Georgia too, no?
Well, again, I was sort of checking the states off, and it had the New York Times at a 60% chance of Trump winning Georgia right now. Georgia is going to be an interesting dynamic. As you know, there are 2 Senate races up right now. And you've got the urban areas will come in first, and then the rural areas will lag behind that. And so what we're going to see initially in Georgia, and that's why I was trying to gather as much information as I could before I came on the air with you. Yeah. But in Georgia, the fact that they already have Trump with a 60% chance of winning means that they have set some thresholds in Atlanta. That's, let's say hypothetically, Biden had to get 65%. He's only at 58. I'm making that up. It's something along those lines, yes, to be able to adjust those numbers down. And that doesn't just speak well for President Trump, but it speaks well for Tom Perdue. It's well for Senator Perdue.
David Perdue, yep.
Who are running for re-election to the United States Senate from Georgia, which is a big part of Republicans holding a majority in the United States Senate. So Georgia is sort of has an outsized importance, not just on the presidential level, but also for Republicans holding the Senate. And right now, if these numbers hold true throughout the evening, the rural votes come in the way we expect them to, then that speaks very well for President Trump and both Loeffler and Perdue.
That's amazing, especially because one of these fantasies has been not only for Texas to turn blue, but before that, Georgia. And Biden spent a lot of time there, and it seems like maybe not going to work out for him. Big picture question, as we're watching results come in, is that going to be the flow of the results? So first we're going to see it kind of be blue with the urban districts, and then the country, rural districts kind of trickle in. Is that how that's going to look for?
It is. I'll give you another example out west where polls aren't closing yet is Nevada. And I do a lot of work in Nevada. I've watched it as it has evolved over time. And the absentee ballots at first, Democrats ran up a big margin. And then early voting started. And Republicans, for whatever reason, Republicans did not want to vote by mail this in 2020. And so they began turning out, and they brought it up to even in early voting numbers. And then now the election day numbers started, where they were reporting it throughout the day, and Republicans throughout the day, and I haven't looked in about an hour, have led in Clark County, which is where Las Vegas is, a heavily Democratic area. Republicans have led consistently throughout the day in terms of overall voter turnout, and that is unprecedented. If that had happened in 2018, Senator Heller would still be a member of the United States Senate, and Adam Laxalt would be governor. And so you could see a situation there where you've got Dan Rodheimer, former World Wrestling Association. I think he was a champion, but he was at least a wrestler for a while. Everything ties back to Florida. Played football at South Florida, who is challenging Susie Lee in a seat that Republicans held until 2016, and he's got a real chance to win that back. And I think it also speaks to maybe a changing of what's going on in Nevada, where you've got a governor who's locked the state down, and people revolting against that. And I think the Democrats are going to see a lot of pushback to their lockdown policies trickle down, not just at the presidential level, and they may not be able to take it out on Governor Steve Sisolak right now, but they're going to vote out Democrats down ballot, potentially because of that.
Yes, and which I think brings us to Michigan. Chris, can you stick around for one more segment? Do you mind if we take a quick break and we can get a quick little update on some numbers, and then we'll come back?
Absolutely.
Because I want to jump a little bit ahead later in the night and talk about the Midwest states.
connected. Download the First TV app right now. It's free. Hold the Line with Buck Sexton premieres tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern right here on the First.
Having said that, if you just look, I'm going to go back to our comments on Dade County. If you look at Miami-Dade County, if Donald Trump is able to get the same sort of margin out of any of the urban areas, and that's the thing about it, Miami is an urban area. It is a very heavily urban area. So if he is able to repeat that or replicate that in urban areas in Pennsylvania or Michigan, it is catastrophic for the Biden campaign. Now, I'm not by any means implying that he will, but it is. I was shocked by the margins that are taking place in that Miami-Dade County, which is the first one we're having reports, so the only thing I have to reference. And someone wants to be the only thing better, worse than no examples is one example, and that's all I got right now.
So what is going to be so he's doing better in Miami-Dade County, but he's still losing Miami-Dade County, right? So what is that?
Miami-Dade County, so substantially. That's my point. Is he's doing so
that's
there
crazy.
That in other areas.
So he's not going to win Philly, right? But even if he doubles his vote tally from Philly, that's got to be a huge.
It is. Mike, to put it in context, if you look at overall with African American vote, I mean, Donald Trump was able to do about 4 points better than Mitt Romney had done in 2012, which made a big difference for him in a lot of areas. So he got up to like between 12 and 15% nationally. If he's able to push that another 3 points to 5 points to 17, 18, 20%, that is, again, devastating for Joe Biden in states like Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. It goes down the line at Arizona, Nevada. So it is an interesting realignment of a specific voting population that has been almost universally Democratic for the course of the last 2 decades.
So as I did the math, if Trump wins Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, Arizona, he's at 260. You only need 10 more. So he can just pick off Minnesota or Wisconsin, and boom, he's at 270, let alone Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Nevada. Nevada doesn't do it quite. But anyway, which of those states in the Midwest do you think he has the best chance in? You talked about how he's got a pretty big hurdle in Michigan. Any of the other states you think he has a better chance?
They're all big hurdles, to be candid. I think probably Minnesota is the best opportunity, and I think that comes down to, again, the situation with an overzealous governor. I think the riots that have taken place there, all of that has made it more likely that Donald Trump would have a chance and to exceed his totals and see what he was able to achieve in 2016 there.
Okay, so I'm a little less encouraged, right? I'm a little fired up about Florida and Georgia seemingly going really well, but it seems like, hold on, we got to wait for some results to come back in the Midwest.
We do, but at the same time, if we'd had this conversation an hour ago, I wouldn't have expected Florida to go the way that it is. So it's that's why they hold the vote. They don't just hand out the awards based on polling.
Yeah, let me ask you about Arizona real quick, because Arizona is such a weird, quirky state. What do you think? Right, because Trump would love that one. All right, I just kind of rattled that off as if like, oh, well, of course he's going to win Arizona. That could be tough. And then you got Martha McSally there, which is in a tough race too.
She is, but it's another situation where early votes started. Absentee ballot, Democrats ran up a big lead, and then Republicans were able to catch up in early voting to where there's only a 0.8% difference between Republican and Democrat turnout on election day. So then if you look at outstanding votes, there are 119,000 voters on election day in 2016 that have not voted yet. And of those, Republicans have a 29-point advantage among them. So it is, that's a good place. I'd rather be a Republican right now in Arizona than a Democrat, looking at those numbers.
What do you know about Mark Kelly? Not to get too in the weeds here, but what do you know about Mark Kelly maybe like transcending the party because he's like a beloved astronaut? Is that not a thing? Do people kind of stick party line when it comes to voting?
You know, it's I will say McSally's been in 2 difficult situations where she has run against transformational Democrats, in that Kirsten Sinema in 2018 and then Mark Kelly today are both not your typical liberal Democrat that are easy to run against. Now, I think she's probably done a better job from a campaign standpoint painting Kelly into that Democrat corner. He's taken more stands. He's done a few more things that fit into the party line than Sinema did. She was a uniquely talented politician, remains one today. And so because of that, I think her chances in 2020 were better than they were in 2018.